सल्लू अलैहि व आलिहि सल्लू अलैहि व आलिहि सल्लू अलैहि व आलिहि सल्लू अलैहि व आलिहि।
जी मैंने चूज किया है द ईयर ऑफ सैडनेस का चैप्टर है और इसमें है सेकंड लास्ट पेज आप कह लें, उसका फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ। मेरी जो एडिशन है उसमें 99 पेज बनता है,
अच्छा।
लेकिन कुछ लोगों से मेरा डिफरेंट चल रहा है पेजेस का। सो द पैराग्राफ स्टार्ट्स विद द प्लेस वेयर द प्रॉफिट हैड फाउंड पीस। अगर सबको मिल गया हो तो फिर मैं रीड करती हूँ।
ये आफ्टर द ईयर ऑफ सैडनेस,
इट इज द ईयर ऑफ सैडनेस इन माय
अच्छा। हाँ जी 99 ही सही।
ठीक, इसमें है जी, the place where the Prophet ﷺ had found peace was not as empty as it had seemed. Every man of Quraysh hoped for riches enough to buy a garden and a house on the green hill of Taif, to which he might escape when the heat of Mecca was at its fiercest. And this orchard was not owned by a man of Thaqif, but was a part of a property that belonged to the Shamsite leaders Utbah and Shayba, who were even now seated in a corner of their garden adjoining the vineyard. They had seen what had happened, nor were they without feelings of indignation at the way in which the rabble of Thaqif had ventured to treat a man of Quraysh who was moreover like themselves, of the sons of Abdul Munaf. As to the differences which had come between them, were not these now almost at an end? They had last seen Muhammad at the deathbed of Abu Talib, and now he was without a protector and clearly in desperate straits. Feelings they could afford to be generous, they called a young Christian slaves of theirs called Adas, and said to him, "Take a cluster of these grapes and put them on this platter, then give it to that man and bid him eat thereof." Adas did as he had been ordered, and when the Prophet ﷺ put his hand to the grapes, he said, "In the name of God." Adas looked keenly into his face, and then he said, "Those words are not what people of this country say." "From what country art thou?" said the Prophet, "and what is thy religion?" "I am a Christian," he said, "of the people of Nineveh, from the city of the righteous man Jonah the son of Matta," said the Prophet. "How knowest thou art of Jonah the son of Matta?" said Adas. "He is my brother," was the answer. "He was a prophet and I am a prophet." And then Adas bent over and kissed his head and his hands and his feet. So ये select sir मैंने इसलिए किया था because ये वो incident है जो नबी पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को सारी जिंदगी याद रहा as one of the days which was the most hard for him. मैं
बहुत खूबसूरत
उस वाक़े पे मैं बात नहीं करना चाह रही, मैं सिर्फ उसके बाद की जो हैपनिंग है उस पे आई कुड नॉट पूरी तरह से समझ ही नहीं सकी कि इस कदर तकलीफ से गुजरने के बाद भी इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस ऑफ द प्रॉफेट सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के जो मिला उसको भी अता किया, इन द सेंस दैट उनसे वो बंदा मिला, उसने उनको पेश किए अंगूर। आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम वाज एबल टू कनेक्ट टू हिम एंड बी विद हिम एंड जस्ट बी प्रेजेंट विद हिम। पीछे क्या गुजरी, पिछले साल में क्या होता रहा, क्या क्या लोग बिछड़ गए, कितनी तकलीफ सही, लेकिन उस वक्त वो उस एक शख्स के साथ बैठे थे और सारा मरकज उसी पे था। सो ये चीज मुझे बहुत खूबसूरत लगी कि मैं बस आई जस्ट वांटेड टू रीड दिस बिकॉज हम कई दफा तैयब की दुआ पे बहुत फोकस करते हैं, लेकिन नबी पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की इमोशनल कैपेसिटी टू स्टिल कनेक्ट एंड गिव एंड प्रोवाइड डिस्पाइट द पेन्स दैट ही वाज फीलिंग, या जो दुख को साइड पे रख के ही वाज एबल टू still provide. So this was the reason I selected this.
It was beautifully written and amazing. बहुत ही खूबसूरत था. Thank you.
मैंने एक्चुअली चूज किया है, मैंने क्योंकि पूरी बुक नहीं पढ़ी हुई, I just went through the table of contents and the one chapter that I really wanted to read is worship, chapter 16, I think. So there is one paragraph from that which I'd like to read. अगर मेरी आवाज clear आ रही है?
आज तो बहुत अच्छी आ रही है.
Okay, चले, I'm glad. अच्छा, this is page 48 in my book and the second paragraph. The Prophet had been distressed by the period of silence from heaven, yet his soul still shrank from receiving the tremendous impact of the divine word, which itself affirmed in a not yet revealed verse. If we sent down this Quran upon a mountain, thou wouldst see it prostrate in humility, rent asunder through fear of God. The impulse which had prompted him to cry out, cover me, still came to him at times. And one night, when he was lying wrapped in his cloak, there broke in upon his seclusion a divine command more stern and urgent than any he had yet received, bidding him warn men of the day of judgment. O thou who art wrapped in thy cloak, arise and warn. Thy Lord magnify, thy raiment purify, defilement shun. For when the trumpet shall be blown, that shall be a day of anguish, not of ease, for disbelievers. Another night, soon after this, he was aroused by further commands, telling him of the intensity of worship expected from him and his followers, and fully confirming his apprehensions of a great burden of responsibility that was to be laid upon him. O thou who art wrapped in thy raiment, keep vigil all night, save a little, half the night, or lessen than half a little, or add to it, and with care and clarity chant the Quran. Verily, we shall load thee with a word of heavy weight. In the same passage, which was also commanded, and invoke in remembrance the name of thy Lord, and devote thyself unto him with utter devotion. Lord of the East and of the West, no God but He. Him therefore take, on Him place thy reliance. There came also other revelations, more gentle in tone, which confirmed and increased the reassurances already given to the Prophet. And on one occasion, visible to him alone, as was normally the case, the angel said to him, Give unto Khatija greetings of peace from her Lord. So he said to her, O Khatija, here is Gabriel, who greeteth thee with peace from thy Lord. And when Khatija could find words to speak, she answered, God is peace, and from him is peace, and on Gabriel be peace. So this paragraph particularly had a lot of weight for me. One, because Surah Muzammil, like I studied a few months ago or last year, and that has stayed with me since then. And just I think any paragraph जिसमें Quran का reference आता है, I felt like just starting this book has added एक और layer of understanding or relationship that I have with the Quran, जो बहुत ही मतलब कि insufficient relationship है, लेकिन जो भी है, it's just changed certain things, just this understanding of how the Quran came to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and how it's come to us, and this better understanding of, the process he went through. So that's why I think this paragraph just, I had to read it.
Very nice. Thank you very much. बहुत अच्छा.
ये बहुत अच्छा, अभी जो सना ने पढ़ा बहुत ही अच्छा था. और मैंने भी वो ईयर ऑफ सैडनेस में ही जहाँ से पहले किसी ने पढ़ा है, वहाँ उसी से पिछला पैराग्राफ था, जहाँ पहले द प्लेस वेयर द प्रॉफिट से स्टार्ट हुआ था ईयर ऑफ सैडनेस वाले चैप्टर में, उससे पिछला पैराग्राफ है ये. बिल्कुल इसमें मुझे ये प्रेयर बहुत अच्छी लगी थी, तो मैंने इसको मार्क किया था. When he felt himself to be in safety and at peace, he prayed, O God, unto thee do I complain of my weakness, of my helplessness, and of my lowliness before men. O most merciful of the merciful, thou art Lord of the weak, and thou art my Lord, into whose hands wilt thou entrust me? Unto some far-off stranger who will ill-treat me, or unto a foe whom thou hast empowered against me? I care not, so thou be not wroth with me, but thy favouring help, that were for me the broader way and the wider scope. I take refuge in the light of thy countenance, whereby all darknesses are illuminated, and the things of of this world and the next are rightly ordered. Lest thou make descend thine anger upon me, or lest thy wrath beset me. Yet it is thine to reproach until thou art well pleased. There is no power and no might except through thee. सिलेक्शन की वजह यही है कि इट्स ब्यूटीफुल प्रेयर और इसमें जो मुझे मेन वर्ड्स जो पसंद है, एक तो ये देयर इज नो पावर एंड नो माइट एक्सेप्ट थ्रू दी, ये जहाँ तक मेरा ख्याल है ये कुरान में नहीं है ये दुआ, और ये हुजूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की ही हदीस से ही साबित होती है. I don't know if I'm right or wrong.
नीचे वो रेफरेंस लिखा हुआ है इब्ने इसहाक, which is the
अच्छा, मेरे
earliest
पास नहीं है जी.
I
280, yes. अच्छा, this is for Ibn, I stands for Ibn Ishaq. Okay.
शुरू में इन्होंने ना ये बुक्स सोर्सेज का कहीं लिस्ट दी हुई है और फिर उसके शॉर्ट फॉर्म्स भी कहीं ना कहीं दिए हैं अभी, या एंड में दिए हैं शायद, सॉरी, बट आई एम
और
श्योर.
ये इसकी थर्ड लाइन है, thou art lord of the weak. मुझे ये बहुत अच्छी लगती है क्योंकि जो हमारे में स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं, जो पावरफुल हैं, उनको तो जरूरत ही नहीं किसी की महसूस होती, लेकिन लॉर्ड ऑफ द वीक इज वेरी वेरी पावरफुल के वीक लोगों का लॉर्ड, मतलब वीक लोगों को सपोर्ट और स्ट्रेंथ उसकी है सिर्फ. जैसे वो शायद मार्क्स ने भी कहा है कि रिलीजन इज एन ओपियम फॉर द oppressed. I guess I don't know the right words. जो तो वो मैं हमेशा सोचती हूँ कि रिलीजन वाकई हमारा ओपियम है. And I'm sorry, not in the bad sense, but in a good sense, to relieve us.
अच्छा, मार्क्स ने जिस सेंस में वो कहा था, रिलीजन
I know वो रिलीजन के खिलाफ था.
opium of the masses.
अच्छा
जी. लेकिन मेरे नजदीक मुझे ये होता है कि मैं अपने इतनी गुर्बत देखती हूँ पाकिस्तान में, तो मुझे होता है कि और एक तरफ इतनी इमारत, तो इस डिस्पैरिटी से मुझे लगता है कि फिर देयर हैज टू बी एन आफ्टर लाइफ टू जस्टिफाई ऑल दिस. अगर आफ्टर लाइफ नहीं होगी तो ये इतनी गुर्बत की क्या जस्टिफिकेशन है, इतनी सफरिंग की क्या आंसर है. इनके लिए मुझे समझ नहीं आता कि मैं इन लोगों को रिलीव कैसे करूं, तो फिर मुझे सिर्फ यही आता है कि ही इज द लॉर्ड ऑफ द वीक.
सही बात है.
थैंक यू सो मच.
The chapter that I chose is the first Revelations, and I would like to read almost all of it, if that's okay. It's a little lengthy.
Page number?
It's page number 43.
हाँ नहीं, इतना लेंथी नहीं है, पढ़ ले, टाइम हो गया.
Okay, I'd just like to give a very small background to this. The first time I read this book was when I was 16 and in school, and it was the first time I read Surah Duha. So it really changed my perspective of the communication between God and the Holy Prophet. And yeah, I'll just start with it. We'll start with the second paragraph. Ramadan was the traditional month of retreat, and it was one night towards the end of Ramadan in his 40th year, when he was alone in the cave, that there came to him an angel in the form of a man. The angel said to him, "Recite." And he said, "I am not a reciter." Whereupon, as he himself told it, the angel took me and held me in his embrace until he had reached the limit of mine endurance. Then he released me and said, "Recite." I said, "I am not a reciter." And again he took me and held me in his embrace. And again, when he had reached the limit of mine endurance, he released me and said, "Recite." And again I said, "I am not a reciter." Then a third time he held me as before, then released me and said, "Recite in the name of thy Lord who created. He createth man from a clot of blood. Recite, and thy Lord is the most bountiful. He who has taught by the pen, taught man what he knew not." He recited these words after the angel, who thereupon left him. And he said, it was as though the words were written on my heart. But he feared that this might mean he had become a jinn-inspired poet or a man possessed. So he fled from the cave, and when he was halfway down the slope of the mountain, he heard a voice above him saying, "O Muhammad, thou art the messenger of God, and I am Gabriel." He raised his eyes heavenwards, and there was his visitant, still recognizable, but now clearly an angel, filling the whole horizon. And again he said, "O Muhammad, thou art the messenger of God, and I am Gabriel." The Prophet stood gazing at the angel. Then he turned away from him, But whichever way he looked, the angel was always there, astride the horizon, whether it was to the north, to the south, to the east, or to the west. Finally, the angel turned away, and the Prophet descended the slope and went to his house. Cover me, he said to Khadija, as with still quaking heart, he laid himself on his couch. Alarmed yet not daring to question him, she quickly brought a cloak and spread it over him. But when the intensity of his awe had abated, he told her what he had seen and heard. And having spoken to him words of reassurance, she went to tell her cousin Warqa, who was now an old man and blind. Holy, holy, he said, by him in whose hand is the soul of Warqa, there has come unto Muhammad the great Namus, even that would come unto Moses. Verily, Muhammad is the prophet of this people. Bid him rest assured. So Khadija went home and repeated these words to the Prophet, who now returned in peace of mind to the cave, that he might fulfill the number of days he had dedicated to God for his retreat. When this was completed, he went straight to the Kaaba, according to his wont, and performed the rite of the rounds, after which he greeted the old and the blind Warqa, whom he had noticed amongst those who were sitting in the mosque. And Warqa said to him, Tell me, O son of my brother, what thou hast seen and heard. The Prophet told him, and the old man said again what he had said to Khadija, but this time he added, Thou wilt be called a liar and ill-treated, and they will cast thee out and make war upon thee. And if I live to see that day, God knoweth I will help his cause. Then he leaned towards him and kissed his forehead, and the Prophet returned to his home. The reassurances of Khadija and Warqa were followed by a reassurance from heaven in the form of a second revelation. The manner of its coming is not recorded, but when asked how revelation came to him, the Prophet mentioned two ways. Sometimes it cometh unto me like the reverberations of a bell, and that is the hardest upon me. The reverberations abate when I am aware of their message. And sometimes the angel taketh the form of a man and speaketh unto me, and I am aware of what he saith. The revelation the second time began with a single letter, the earliest instance of those cryptic letters with which several of the Quranic messages begin. The letter was followed by a divine oath sworn by the pen, which had already been mentioned in the first revelation as the primary means of God's teaching men his wisdom. When questioned about the pen, the Prophet said, The first thing God created was the pen. He created the tablet and said to the pen, Write. And the pen answered, What shall I write? He said, Write my knowledge of my creation till the day of resurrection. Then the pen traced what had been ordained. The oath by the pen is followed by a second oath, by that which they write, and amongst what they, that is the angels, write in heaven with lesser pens on lesser tablets in the Quran's celestial archetype, which subsequent revelations refer to as glorious recitation on an inviolable tablet and as the mother of the book. The two oaths are followed by the divine reassurance, known by the pen and by which they write, No madman art thou, through the grace of thy Lord unto thee, and thine shall be a meed unfailing, and verily an immense magnitude is thy nature. After the first messages had come, there was a period of silence, until the Prophet began to fear that he had incurred in some way the displeasure of heaven, though Khadija continually told him that this was not possible. Then at last the silence was broken, and there came a further reassurance, and with it the first command directly related to his mission. By the morning brightness and by the night when it is still, thy Lord has not forsaken thee, nor doth he hate thee, and the last shall be better for thee than the first, and thy Lord shall give unto thee, and thou shalt be satisfied. Has he not found thee an orphan and sheltered thee, and found thee astray and guided thee, and found thee needy and enriched thee? So for the orphan, oppress him not, and for the beggar, repel him not, and for the bountiful grace of thy Lord, proclaim it.
बहुत खूबसूरत, जबरदस्त.
Yes, I'd just like to add, I learned about this surah. It was way back, but I think as a student who was only exposed to the life of the Prophet through syllabus books, I had never known of this kind of reassurance that God would give the Prophet. So it's always left a very big impact on me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Isa.
ये हमने पहले बहीरा द मॉन्क के बारे में पढ़ा, फिर नेस्टर द मॉन्क के बारे में पढ़ा, और उसमें एक बड़ा ये था कि उस वक्त की जो क्रिश्चियन जो मिस्टिक्स थे, एटलीस्ट दे वर एक्सपेक्टिंग कि एक प्रॉफिट आने वाला है. ये जो मैंने नोट पैराग्राफ सेलेक्ट किया है, 1-1.5 पैराग्राफ, इसमें बेसिकली पूरा सम अप करते हैं कि किस तरह ज्यूज, क्रिश्चियंस और हुनफा की भी एक कैटेगरी थी, वो सारे एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे और उसके अराउंड क्या वो थी। तो इसमें हुनफा का भी कोई जिक्र है, ये भी बड़े मतलब अच्छे उस जमाने के खूबसूरत लोग थे, तो इसलिए मैंने ये पैराग्राफ एक दो सिलेक्ट किए। द नीड फॉर अ प्रॉफिट,
पेज नंबर,
पेज मेरे पास पेज 16 है, चैप्टर 6 है द नीड फॉर अ प्रॉफिट, और इसका सेकंड पेज है इस चैप्टर का। बट देयर वर एंड ऑलवेज हैड बीन, हो गया ट्रैक
जी
जी, मैं इसमें करता हूँ। But there were and always had been a few who maintained the full purity of Abrahamic worship. They alone realized that far from being traditional, idol worship was an innovation, a danger to be guarded against. It only needed a longer view of history to see that Hubal was no better than the golden calf of the sons of Israel. These Hunafa, as they called themselves, would have nothing to do with the idols, whose presence in Mecca they looked on as a profanation and a pollution. Their refusal to compromise and their frequent outspokenness relegated them to the fringe of Meccan society, where they were respected, tolerated, or ill-treated, partly according to their personalities and partly according to whether their clans were prepared to protect them or not. इसमें बड़ा मतलब खूबसूरत वो पूरी पॉलिटिक्स भी उसके अंदर शामिल है, मतलब लोगों की वो बिलीफ भी, पॉलिटिक्स भी और उनकी सेफ्टी, सारा कुछ इसमें। Abdul Muttalib knew 4 of the Hunafa, and one of the more respected of them, Waraka by name, was the son of his second cousin Nawfal of the clan of Asad. Waraka had become a Christian, and there was a belief among Christians of those parts that the coming of a prophet was imminent. This belief may not have been widespread, but it was supported by 1 or 2 venerable dignitaries of Eastern churches, and also by astrologers and soothsayers. As to the Jews, for whom such a belief was easier, since for them the line of prophets ended only with the Messiah, they were almost unanimous in their expectancy of a prophet. Their rabbis and other wise men assured them that one was at hand. Many of the predicted signs of his coming had already been fulfilled. And he would, of course, be a Jew, for they were the chosen people. The Christians, Baraka among them, had their doubts about this. They saw no reason why he should not be an Arab. The Arabs stood in need of a prophet even more than the Jews, who at least still followed the religion of Abraham, inasmuch as they worshipped the one God and did not have idols. And who but a prophet would be capable of ridding the Arabs of their worship of a false god, of false gods? In a wide circle around Kaaba, at some distance from it, there were 360 idols. And then it goes on. ये मैं इतना पार्ट पढ़ना चाह रहा था.
Thank you, Zabardast.
It's chapter 32, page number 101. The light of thy countenance.
Sahi.
Section में नहीं कर सकती क्योंकि पूरे जो एक नरेशन ये बता दें कि मैं पैराग्राफ पढ़ूं या क्या करूं.
हाँ नहीं कोई नहीं, टाइम तो है, मतलब है इसके बाद मेरे ख्याल से कामिल साहब भी, तो आपने जितना पढ़ना पढ़ लें.
Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Fatima, the widow of Abu Talib, had entered Islam either before or after her husband's death, and so had her daughter Hani, the sister of Ali and Jafar. But Hani's husband, Hubayra, was altogether impervious to the message of God's oneness. He nonetheless made the Prophet welcome when he came to their house, and if it was the time for a prayer during one of those visits, the Muslims of the household would pray together. On one occasion, when they had all prayed the night prayer behind the Prophet, Hani invited him to spend the night with them. He accepted her invitation, but after a brief sleep, he rose and went to the mosque, for he loved to visit the Kaaba during the night hours. While he was there, the desire to sleep came over him again, and he lay down in the hijr. Whilst I was sleeping in the hijr, he said, Gabriel came to me and spurred me with his foot, whereupon I sat upright. Yet I saw nothing and lay down once again. A second time he came, and a third time. And then he took me by the arm, and I rose and stood beside him. And he led me out to the gate, and there was a white being, a mule with thee. The Prophet then told how he mounted Buraq, for so the beast was named, and with the archangel at his side, pointing the way and measuring his pace to that of the heavenly steed, they sped northwards beyond Yathrib and beyond Khaybar until they reached Jerusalem. Then they were met by a company of prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and others. And when he prayed on the site of the temple, they gathered together behind him in prayer. Then 2 vessels were brought before him and offered him, one of wine, the other of milk. He took the vessel of milk and drank from it, but left the vessel of wine. And Gabriel said, Thou hast been guided to the path primordial, and hast guided thereunto thy people, O Muhammad, and wine is forbidden you. Then, as had happened to others before him, to Enoch and Elijah and Jesus and Mary, Muhammad was taken up out of this life to heaven. From the rock in the center of the site of the temple, he again mounted Buraq, who moved his wings in upward flight and became for his rider as the chariot of fire had been for Elijah. Led by the archangel who now revealed himself as a heavenly being, they ascended beyond the domain of earthly space and time and bodily forms. And as they passed through the 7 heavens, he met again those prophets with whom he had prayed in Jerusalem. But there they had appeared to him as they had been during their life on earth, whereas now he saw them in their celestial reality, even as they now saw him, and he marveled at their transfiguration. Of Joseph, he said that his face had splendor of the moon at its full, and that he had been endowed with no less than half of all existing beauty. Yet this did not diminish Muhammad's wonderment at his other brethren. And he mentioned in particular the great beauty of Aaron. Of the gardens that he visited in the different heavens, he said afterwards, a piece of paradise the size of a bow is better than all beneath the sun, whereon it riseth and setteth. And if a woman of the people of paradise appeared unto the people of earth, she would fill the space between heaven and here below with light and with fragrance. Everything he now saw, he saw with the eye of the Spirit and of his spiritual nature, with reference to the beginnings of all earthly nature. He said, I was a prophet when Adam was yet between water and clay. The summit of his ascent was the low tree of the uttermost end. So it is named in the Quran. And in one of the oldest commentaries based on the sayings of the Prophet, it is said, the low tree is rooted in the throne, and it marks the end of the knowledge of every knower, be he archangel or prophet messenger. All beyond it is hidden mystery, unknown to any save God alone. At the summit of the universe, Gabriel appeared to him in all his archangelic splendor, even as he was first created. Then, in the words of the revelation, when there enshrouded the low tree that which enshrouded, the eye wavered not, nor did it transgress. Verily he beheld of all the signs of his Lord, the greatest. According to the commentary, the divine light descended upon the low tree and enshrouded it and all else beside, and the eye of the Prophet beheld it without wavering and without turning aside from it. Such was the answer, or one of the answers, to the supplication implicit in his words, I take refuge in the light of thy countenance. At the low tree, the Prophet received for his people the command of 50 prayers a day. And it was then that he received the revelation which contains the creed of Islam. The messenger believeth, and the faithful believe in what hath been revealed unto him from his Lord. Each one believeth in God and his angels and his books and his messengers. We made no distinction between any of his messengers. And they say, we hear and we obey. Grant us, thou our Lord, thy forgiveness. Unto thee is the ultimate becoming. They made their descent through the seven heavens, even as they had ascended. The prophet said, on my return, when I passed Moses, and what a good friend he was unto you, he asked me, how many prayers have been laid upon thee? I told him, 50 prayers every day. And he said, the congregational prayer is a weighty thing, and thy people are weak. Return unto thy Lord, and ask him to lighten the load for thee and thy people. So I returned and asked my Lord to make it lighter, and he took away 10. Then I passed Moses again, and he repeated what he had said before. So I returned again, and 10 more prayers were taken from me. But every time I returned unto Moses, he sent me back until finally all the prayers had been taken from me, except 5 for each day and night. Then I returned unto Moses, but still he had the same as before. And I said, I have returned unto my Lord and asked him until I am ashamed. I will not go again. And so it is that he who performeth the 5 in good faith and in trust of God's bounty, unto him shall be given the meed of 50 prayers. यहाँ तक कर लेते हैं.
बहुत ही खूबसूरत. आप कुछ इस पे कहना भी चाहेंगी?
नहीं.
बहुत जबरदस्त है. थैंक यू. तो आखिर में कामिल साहब से गुजारिश करते हैं, अगर उन्होंने कोई चीज पसंद की हुई है तो वो पढ़ दे.
पसंद करना इतना मुश्किल है इस किताब में से, क्योंकि हर चैप्टर, हर पैराग्राफ ये दे लाइक ज्यूल्स. तो इसमें से अगर सेलेक्ट करना इंतहाई मुश्किल है, तो मैंने वलीद की सजेशन उसका फॉलो किया, और जहां भी हाथ में किताब जो थी जहां खुल गई, तो वहीं से मैं आपको थोड़ा सा एक आध पैराग्राफ्स सुनाई देता हूं. ये है पेज 64, ये चैप्टर है लीडर्स ऑफ कुरैश. The followers of the Prophet were continually increasing, but whenever a new convert came to him and pledged his or her allegiance, it was more often than not a slave or a freed slave or a member of Quraysh of the outskirts, or else a young man or woman from Quraysh of the hollow, of influential family, but of no influence in themselves, whose conversion would increase tenfold the hostility of their parents and elder kinsmen. Abdurrahman, Hamza, and Arqam had been exceptions, but they were far from being leaders, and the Prophet longed to win over some of the chiefs, not one of whom, not even his uncle Abu Talib, had shown any inclination to join him. It would greatly help him to spread his message if he had the support of a man like Abu Jahl's uncle, Waleed, who was not only chief of Makhzum, but also, if it were possible to say such a thing, the unofficial leader of Quraysh. He was, moreover, a man who seemed more open to argument than many of his others. And on one day, an opening came for the Prophet to speak with Waleed alone. But when they were deep in converse, a blind man came past, one who had recently entered Islam, and hearing the Prophet's voice, he begged him to recite to him some of the Quran. when asked to be patient and wait for a better moment, the blind man became so importunate that in the end the Prophet frowned and turned away. His conversation had been ruined, but the interruption was not the cause of any loss, for Waleed was in fact no more open to the message than those whose case seemed hopeless. A new surah was revealed almost immediately, and it began with the words, "He frowned and turned away, because the blind man came to him." The revelation continued, "As to him who sufficeth unto himself, with him thou art engrossed. Yet is it no concern of thine if purified he be not? But as for him who cometh unto thee in eager earnestness and in fear of God, from him thou art drawn away." So, इतने ही मैं पढ़ लेता हूँ, पर आज ये जितने भी सिलेक्शंस सुने हमने, और इस सिलेक्शन में भी चंद चीजें जो हमें इस किताब की खुसूसियत और इसकी इम्पोर्टेंस वैल्यू समझने में मदद देती है। हाँ, कई चीजें। सबसे नुमाया जो इन सिलेक्शंस में कि the humanity of the Prophet ﷺ, and also of all the individual personalities around, they come across as real, very human individuals with all their fears, anxieties, desires, passions. Politics bhi hai, power bhi hai, wealth, class, tribal allegiance. This is a reality. और वो जो गालिबन कह रही थी कि जिस तरह से उन्हें अभी तक जो टेक्स्ट पढ़ाए गए हैं, particularly जो syllabuses वगैरह में होते हैं, उनमें it's presented in a very dry sort of manner. You don't get the sense of it being about real people in a real world with their real problems and real aspirations, hopes, umange, or disappointments. So this is one thing that comes across very strongly. And this is why I found so many people have said that they were completely converted or convinced or moved after reading this book, because it reads so easily and you can identify with it. You can identify with the situations, with the characters and the struggles of the human soul against all of the trials and tribulations of this very real world that we are in. दूसरी बात जो इसमें गौर करने चाहिए कि जितनी खूबसूरती से इस दुनिया की हकीकतों की और इस जिंदगी के जो हकीकतें हैं, उनके अंदर हमें जैसे we're thrown into that or become part of that, और उसी खूबसूरती से, लेकिन हो सकता है कि ये हर शख्स को शायद इस बात की पूरी अहमियत अप्रिशिएट ना कर सके, पर मैं इस तरफ तवज्जो आप दिलाना चाहता हूँ कि उतने ही फोर्सफुली और ब्यूटिफुली एंड इफेक्टिवली इस किताब में शेख अबू बकर ने the metaphysical realities, the otherworldly, the spiritual realities, उनको भी ऐसे अंदाज में पेश किया है कि बिल्कुल जैसे शुगर कोटेड पिल, आपको पता भी नहीं चलता कि यू हैव इंटरनलाइज्ड दैट. इसमें कोई वो खौफनाक किस्म की कोई डर धमकी या फैंटेसी या कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है. So Sheikh Abu Bakr has so effectively taught us and made us equally become a part, or at least to appreciate the other dimension, which of course is the real dimension. So ye jo aspects of the metaphysical and spiritual realities of those dimensions, jis tarah jo the journey, night journey, और बहुत सारे passages में बार बार उनकी भी हमें मिसालें मिलती. So ये दोनों जहान, दोनों जिंदगी, दोनों dimensions को अपने अपने मुकाम पे उसकी हकीकत in relation to each other and as a lived experience, both of in the world and in the spirit. तो ये चीजें बहुत ही उम्दा तरीके से, और मैं समझता हूँ कि दूसरी ट्रांसलेशंस के मुकाबले में ये इतनी इफेक्टिव, एक उसकी वजह ये भी है कि ये जो it's not just a literal translation, and certainly it's not repeating any of the other available translations. As far as I know, Sheikh Abu Bakr has these translations from the original Arabic are translations of his own, I mean original, they are not copied from anywhere else. और इसमें जो है कि जैसे वो दो एस्पेक्ट्स, दोनों डायमेंशंस को बैक वक्त इस टेक्स्ट में पेश किया जाता है, जो ज़बान इस्तेमाल की गई है उसमें भी ये एक अजीब कैफियत है, एक इसमें पावर है. It speaks to the man of today, and when I say man, I mean men and women. So it speaks to us in this time and age, but connects the message with the spirit, the mood, the color of the time of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. ये कमाल अचीवमेंट है, मैं समझता हूँ इस किताब की. शेख अबू बकर की बेशतर जो राइटिंग्स हैं उसमें ये खूबी है कि it immediately connects you here and now with the reality that was then. तो ये कुछ अर्ज करना चाह रहा था मैं, and of course do we have more readings planned of this आगे?
आज आखिरी दिन था, कल जो है वो कंक्लूजन होगा, उसमें लोग भी अपने व्यूज देंगे और सीधी मुस्तफा मजजूब जो है वो भी कुछ बात करेंगे.
ठीक है, तो that is what I just wanted to comment.
Yes, thank you very much. That was wonderful.
जी तैमूर साहब बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत एंजॉय किया मैंने, और कामिल साहब का तो माशाल्लाह बहुत ही ज्यादा इंस्पायरिंग और अच्छा तजिया था. जिस तरह से ये बुक मैंने सुनी वो बिल्कुल मेरी फीलिंग्स यही हैं कि वो कनेक्शन जो है इससे वो एक डिफरेंट है. सीरत की बाकी किताबें जो आप देखते हैं वो इस तरह से वो जज्बात और इमोशंस और उस तरह से उनको डायरेक्टली हिट नहीं करती क्लिनिकल वे में, जिस तरह से इसने किया है. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सबका.
जी बहुत अच्छा कमेंट. तो कोई और कुछ कहना चाहेगा? क्योंकि अभी भी है 1 मिनट नहीं, अभी है 5-6 मिनट और खत्म भी कर सकते हैं. जी
बस I just wanted to commend Meher on her beautiful recitation. माशाल्लाह, मैंने सबकी बहुत प्यारी होती थी, लेकिन मेहर की आवाज और फोकस हर वर्ड पे वो बहुत ही डिफरेंट था। और माशाल्लाह जो मेहर की सिलेक्शन थी वो भी मेरी एग्जैक्टली इस दुआ के अलावा जो मैंने सिलेक्शन की थी वो एग्जैक्टली मेहर वाली थी, अबाउट द Miraj and the whole episode of Miraj. So just wanted to congratulate her on her beautiful selection and her beautiful recitation. Mashallah, I think she should go ahead and form a YouTube channel or something for her recitation.
I think it's the quality of the text and this mehfil also, and your listening.
That was a very nice comment, sir. Thank you. जी मिशेल, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगी? एक आध जुमला।
कुछ कहने के लिए नहीं है, except that thank you and I wish ये खत्म नहीं हो रहा होता and we could continue.
नहीं, हम कंटिन्यू करेंगे, हम करेंगे इसको कंटिन्यू मिशेल।
सही है।
Yes, okay, yes.
जी फारूक साहब, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं?
जी, मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रहा हूँ, आपको आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
हाँ जी, आ रही है।
अच्छा, मैं पूछना चाह रहा था कि एक तो कामिल साहब का बहुत शुक्रिया। आई विश के कामिल साहब शुरू से होते और हर महफिल में कुछ ना कुछ कह देते तो हम मतलब ज्यादा सीखते, लेकिन बहुत शुक्रिया आपके आने का। और जो कुछ आपने कहा वो आपने मतलब वाकई बड़ा अच्छा आपने बताया, बहुत शुक्रिया। तैमूर साहब, इसके अलावा एक चीज ये कि अभी कल तो आपने बताया कि एक साहब आएंगे और वो इसके बाद सब्सिक्वेंटली मैं कुछ आपकी फेसबुक पे देख रहा था, वो भी रबीउल अव्वल की मुनासबत से आपने कुछ चीजें अरेंज की हुई हैं, लेकिन वो अगर आप 2 जुमलों में बता सकें कि क्या है, ताकि हम इन पर्सन हैं क्या है, वो काइंडली अगर आप बता दें तो।
वो भी ऑनलाइन है और इंशाल्लाह इस ग्रुप में उसका पोस्टर आज या कल शेयर कर देंगे। वो है 13th, 14th, 15th और 16th को। बेसिकली 4 टॉक्स हैं। एक कामिल साहब की अर्बनिज्म इन द लाइट ऑफ द सुन्ना है, हमारे दोस्त ने कराची में रिजवानुल्लाह खान, वो इकोलॉजी इन द लाइट ऑफ द सुन्ना है। और फिर सैयद उज़ैर अब्दुल्ला कादरी इकोनॉमिक्स कह लें या माशियात कह लें इन द लाइट ऑफ द सुन्ना। और आखिर में वो जो कल हमारे गेस्ट आएंगे मुस्तफ़ा मज्जूब, वो साइंस इन द लाइट ऑफ द प्रोफेटिक टीचिंग्स, 1 or 2 पॉइंट्स उसको देखेंगे उसकी रोशनी में। तो काफी दिलचस्प रहेगा मुझे लगता है। और
ये सब ऑनलाइन होंगे?
ये ऑनलाइन ही प्लान है, बट विल लेट यू नो अगर कोई अगर इन पर्सन हुआ तो वो हम अगले वीक डिसाइड हो जाएगा, वरना ऑनलाइन ही मेरा ख्याल है ये। और कुछ हमारे जो गायकी के स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो कुछ नात वगैरह कोई हदिया पेश करेंगे, तो ऐसे है।
चले इंशाल्लाह।
ये नात वाला भी ऑनलाइन है या वो क्या एट हस्त और नीस्ट होगा?
होगा तो एट हस्त और नीस्ट, मगर अभी यही लग रहा है कि उनका पूरा प्रोग्राम ही ऑनलाइन है। तो अभी लेट यू नो मुझे कि क्या उसकी, जहाँ तक मुझे पता है ऑनलाइन ही।
ठीक,
अगर इन पर्सन भी ऑप्शन हुआ तो पता बता देंगे। पोस्टर पे जरूर लिखा होगा, मैंने गौर से देखा नहीं।
ठीक है।
ये 4 सिटिंग है, 13, 14, 15, 16, वो इसी टाइप का टाइम है, 9 से 11। तो लेट्स सी। और भी कुछ इसमें इतना लंबा कैसे, 1 घंटे की तो टॉक होगी। देख कुछ सस्पेंस भी रहना चाहिए, देखें क्या होता है। डॉक्टर सना, आखिर में आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगी कामिल साहब की बात पर या आज की सिटिंग?
सर, मुझे यही लगता है कि जब आप कोई बहुत खूबसूरत पेंटिंग देखते हैं या बिल्डिंग देखते हैं या कोई किताब बहुत खूबसूरत पढ़ते हैं, तो जहाँ वो आप उस सब्जेक्ट मैटर को लेते हैं तो एक आपको थोड़ा सा ये भी अफसोस होता है कि काश मैं इस राइटर को भी मिल सकता। तो जिन्होंने ये इतनी खूबसूरत किताब लिखी है, तो मैं कई दफा सोचती हूँ कि अगर उनसे मिलके उनको देखा जाता और उनको सुना जाता या उनसे बात की जाती इन्हीं टॉपिक्स पे, तो वो क्या, उसकी क्या फीलिंग होती। और जो भी कोई सीरा पे बहुत खूबसूरत बात कर सकता है, आई ऑलवेज फील सॉर्ट ऑफ जैसे कि उस बंदे को मैं अपना उस्ताद बना लूं, कि अगर कोई सीरा को खूबसूरत तरह से एक अपने तरह से बयान करे तो उसके पास कोई खास है उसके और नबी पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के दरमियान। तो फिर दिल चाहता है उस शख्स के साथ बैठा जाए, उससे सीखा जाए, उसके साथ वक्त गुजारा जाए, कुछ उनसे लिया जाए। सो जब भी मैं डॉक्टर मार्टिन लिंग्स की किताब पढ़ती हूँ तो देयर इज अ सेंस ऑफ पॉवर्टी दैट सेट्स इनटू मी, बट एट द सेम टाइम I feel also happy that Alhamdulillah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose so many people to leave these tiny lamps for us, ताकि हम आहिस्ता आहिस्ता किसी दिन नबी पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम तक पहुंच सके. So I feel a lot of respect and gratitude for this book and for the writer, and I wish I could have met him in this part of the realm. So बस ये है.
बहुत खूबसूरत आपने बात की. Very nice. कोई रह तो नहीं क्या?
मार्टिन लिंग्स जो हैं वो लाहौर भी आए थे ना, आई थिंक 90s में. उनका लेक्चर काफी लोगों ने सुना था. What year is that?
वो तो उनकी जिंदगी के आखिर में था, 2000s में था शायद, मगर ये
2003 में
वो मेरे ख्याल से 86 से हर साल आते थे. 84 में उनको अवार्ड मिला था ना जब ज़ावलक ने दिया था, तो उसके बाद 85, मगर वो प्राइवेट विजिट होता था, अपने डिसाइपल्स से मिलने आते थे. तो उस साल उन्होंने एक्सेप्शन किया और आखिरी सालों में फिर एक दो दफा उन्होंने ये लेक्चर्स दिए. एक लेक्चर उन्होंने सूफिज्म पे दिया था इकबाल अकेडमी में, और एक ये दिया था एनसीए में. तो फिर एंड में उन्होंने फिर पब्लिक भी ये किया. तो ये था, लाहौर आते थे. तो मैं उस दिन जो मैं बात बताना भूल गया दादा साहब के हवाले से, कि उसी जब हर साल आते थे तो एक दफा वो दादा साहब भी उनको ले जाया गया, तो मैं इत्तेफाक से उनके साथ था, और मुझे उनके जूते उठाने का शर्फ हासिल है, जो मैं कभी भूलता नहीं हूँ. क्योंकि वो जो मुजाविर थे उनके, वो अपने इजिप्ट में तो ऐसा होता है, लोग अपनी बगल में जूता डाल के मजार में चले जाते हैं, वरना बाहर से चोरी हो जाते हैं वहां पे. तो वो एक मुजाविर उन्हें रोक रहा था, तो मैंने उनसे ले लिए जूते. पहले उन्होंने देखा ये कौन मेरे जूते ले रहा है, फिर उन्होंने देखा मैं ले रहा हूँ, तो उन्होंने दे दिए. बाद में फिर उन्होंने कहा कि ये दाता साहब पे, he said that the baraka here is overwhelming. I wish I would have come here more often. तो बहुत ज्यादा उनको असर हुआ था दाता साहब के मजार की हाजिरी का. तो the baraka here overwhelming.
माशाल्लाह.
वरना वो मियां मीर साहब हमेशा जाते थे.